Hello and welcome. In India and Russia have been friends for 78 years through thick and thin. In the Soviet era, Moscow was part of India's developmental journey and remains a major supplier of arms and spares even today. Trade has also swelled in recent years, closing in on $70 billion US. But the potential remains huge to take this partnership further. I'm Gautam Roy.
Hello Gautam, good morning. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Russian President Vladimir Putin landed in Delhi last evening for a two-day state visit with the goal to extend India-Russia ties beyond the traditional domains. There is much scope, of course, in expansion in digital tech space, apart from opening up Russia to more Indian imports, even its workforce. We'll be talking about it extensively with our correspondents and experts during the course of this special program. The Russian leader begins his official engagements in Delhi.
Well, Russian President Vladimir Putin arrived in New Delhi for a two-day state visit at the invitation of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, marking the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit on Thursday evening.
The visit exemplifies one of India's most enduring bilateral relationships sustained through various conflicts. Next report brings you more.
In a rare diplomatic gesture that underscores the strong ties between India and Russia, Prime Minister Narendra Modi received Russian President Vladimir Putin at Delhi airport on Thursday. This gesture highlights the strategic partnership and close relationship between the two leaders. Putin arrived in India for a two-day state visit. During the visit, President Putin will engage in delegation-level talks with Prime Minister Modi to review the special and privileged strategic partnership, while President Draupadi Murmu will receive him and host a banquet. Key events on Friday will also include a guard of honor at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Bilateral meetings between the two leaders will cover discussions on critical regional and global issues, reaffirming reliable partnership amid shifting geopolitics. A major focus of the visit is on expanding economic and trade ties, with bilateral trade hitting a record $68.7 billion in the last financial year. Both leaders aim to narrow India's trade deficit by ramping up exports such as pharmaceuticals, textiles, marine products, potatoes, and pomegranates, which were recently launched for export to Russia. They will also advance talks on local currency settlements to facilitate smoother trade. Beyond trade, people-to-people ties between the two countries are strengthening. The Indian community in Russia has surged to nearly 100,000, including an increase in medical students, signaling growing opportunities. To further support bilateral relations, two new Indian consulates were opened this year in Kazan and Yekaterinburg to boost trade, tourism, and cooperation in sectors such as fertilizers, pharmaceuticals, and manufacturing. During the visit, a high-level India-Russia business forum attended by both Prime Minister Modi and Russian President will be held. This forum brings together Russian delegates from infrastructure, transport, construction, agro-products, and fertilizer sectors, which are vital given Russia's supply of approximately 3.4 million tons of fertilizers to India, aiming to further elevate Indian exports and deepen economic engagement. Jessica Taneja for DD India.
And earlier on Thursday, Prime Minister Modi presented a Russian language copy of Bhagavad Gita to President Putin at his Delhi residence. Prime Minister Modi later shared the moment on social media, writing that Gita's teachings inspire millions of people around the world.
And then the PM also hosted President Putin for a private dinner at his residence at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg on Thursday night. Much room for speculation there for media around the world as to what the two leaders talked about, because this was a private event. No cameras were allowed. Now, let's just look at the schedule as well of the President while he's in India, the second day of his state visit. It begins with a ceremonial reception at Rashtrapati Bhavan. After that, he'll visit Rajghat to pay tributes to Mahatma Gandhi. Later, he will meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi at Hyderabad House. At noon, both Prime Minister Modi and Russian President Putin will issue a joint statement, and later in the evening, the visiting president will meet his Indian counterpart Draupadi Murmu at Rashtrapati Bhavan, and around 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time, the Russian president will depart from New Delhi.
Let us also take this conversation forward with our guest and correspondent. Let me welcome Ajay Malhotra, former Indian ambassador to Russia. Also, Major General Sanjay Soy, a defense expert. Joining us also is our colleague Siddharth Bharadwaj to get us the latest on the developments as far as President Putin's official engagements are concerned. Good morning and welcome to all of you. Ambassador Malhotra, if we can begin with you. India-Russia partnership is hailed as time-tested friendship often. Now, in this visit of President Putin, what new tests, what new opportunities lie ahead?
Well, yes, it is truly time-tested and trust-based. I think the most important thing is we have over the years realized that if there's a country we can trust in all of this, it is Russia. And so that is very important when we look at how to expand the relationship and how to grow it. But before that, I want to make one comment. I saw how nice it was that our Prime Minister presented a Bhagavad Gita to President Putin. Incidentally, the first translation of the Bhagavad Gita into Russian was done by Nikolai Novikov in the year 1788. And so this is something that they are familiar with. And it is very nice to see that this is also being put forward. Coming back. So yes, economic cooperation, trade, including trade and investment, would be important focus of the visit. Our trade is at about $70 billion, as you said, but of it only $5 billion is Indian exports. So there's a huge opportunity out there. There are sectors where we can definitely move in, and I think our entrepreneurs need to be a little more pushy in that. The structures that are required to enable it are largely in place. But for example, those getting outcompeted elsewhere could think of Russia as a new destination. And I refer here to not only pharma, which has traditionally been involved in Russia, but also automobiles, textiles, leather, IT services. All of these have great prospects. And so looking ahead, there's much we can do together in the trade front. In the investment front, again, very nice to see that the top bankers have come in from Russia. Sberbank, for example, is the biggest bank out there, and that they're thinking of doing things together with India. They've opened a mutual fund to allow Russian investors to invest in India and partake also of the opportunities we have here for foreign investors. And I noticed also two other very nice things that they've done. They are thinking of how they can, for example, send in gold, which can be exported to India, and the bank would take the lead in that. So that's another, I think, appropriate way to look at things that might be attractive in the Indian context. Thirdly, they are looking at buying government securities. So that is, again, another good way by which Russian savings can be invested and get a better return out of what is provided to Indian consumers on the Indian financial market. So there, even in these sectors, there's a lot we can do together. If you look at new avenues, and I do hope our businessmen will take these opportunities and move them forward.
All right. Major, so if I could bring you in, as far as the relationship on defense and security goes, India and Russia have been partners for long. For a large part, a lot of the weaponry that India imported, being the largest importer of armaments in the world at one stage, was from Russia. That has gone down. But still, Russia has been part of India's journey to even focus on self-reliance where its own defense is concerned. So that relationship has matured further. What more can be added to it at this stage by these two leaders meeting today?
Surely, Gautam, thank you so much. And you have rightly brought out that India has been procuring a lot of defense equipment from Russia. And in fact, earlier it was almost 70% of defense procurement were from Russia. Now it has come down to about 37-38%. And we have diversified our imports from US and France. However, with this coming visit and the number of deals which are likely to take place, whether it is S-400, and we are also thinking of S-500, Su-57, Panzer air defense missile systems. So there are chances that it will again go up further. Second thing is, the best thing which Gautam you have also brought out, that they allow us to make in India. Like we have been doing it, whether it is the BrahMos, T-90 tanks, Sukhoi and aircraft. So that same thing is now replicated. That makes a lot of difference because then our supply chain is assured. We can increase numbers. And also, like it is happening in the case of BrahMos, we are also looking for export, like we have done with the Philippines also. And AK-203 is also being made in India with Russian collaboration. So there's a lot of happening. Besides that, other important thing which is happening is reloss. I mean, making Indian bases available to Russian military infrastructure, whether ships or aircraft, and similar thing Russia will do to the Indian aircrafts and ships to provide logistic support. That is another milestone which has been ratified before Putin came to India. Third thing which is there is that we are also thinking of improving connectivity, whether it's the north-south corridor through Iran or Chennai, Vladivostok maritime corridor. So we are thinking of different paradigms, whether it is in the field of arms ammunition, whether it is in the field of connectivity, whether it is in the field of other security, or balance of payment, and also in the field of nuclear energy. That is one major thing which is going to happen because India is looking for by 2047 100 gigawatt of production of clean nuclear energy. At present, we are just about 8.8 gigawatts. So that is where the Russia plays a major role. They have been again a trusted partners in all fields, whether it was a nuclear energy project in Ernakulam, and now also they are offering their nuclear energy. And government is also looking to privatize the nuclear energy investment by the private sector. So there are a lot of things which are happening, and I'm sure this visit will add many new milestones. The trust factor is already there, and whether it's a trade, defense, nuclear, connectivity, and people-to-people contact, they are ready to take our manpower to help them in rebuild and construction and train and white collar and blue collar manpower. There are many things which are going to happen, Gautam.
Right. Gautam, let's also get some insights into how the day is planned ahead. DD India correspondent Siddharth Bharadwaj is connected with us. Siddharth, if you could take us through the key engagements of Russian President Vladimir Putin alongside Prime Minister Modi.
Well, definitely, Shubhendu. A very good morning to you. And it is a packed itinerary for Russian President Vladimir Putin, who arrived in Delhi yesterday. And in fact, Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself went to the airport to, to receive him, which goes on to show the warm ties between both the countries. In the picture that surfaced in the car all over social media, in fact, which Prime Minister Narendra Modi also shared on his X handle, goes on to show the relation, the ties which are strengthening between both the countries. And when you talk about today, the itinerary is really packed. First, Russian President Vladimir Putin will be accorded a ceremonial welcome at the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. After that, he will be going to the Rajghat to pay tributes, to pay respects to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi. And after that, both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting in Hyderabad House in New Delhi, wherein there are some MOUs which are expected to be signed. We don't have the details of the MOU though, but as and when they will come, we will give you those details. And after that, it is followed by a joint statement. And apart from that, there are some other engagements throughout the day. So it's a packed itinerary for both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Shubhendu.
All right, Siddhartha. We'll come back to you later on as the engagements proceed. Thanks for joining us for the moment. Now, as India and Russia strengthen their diplomatic and strategic engagements, a series of high-level meetings underscored the growing depth of cooperation between the two long-standing partners. Here's a look at the key developments shaping this crucial bilateral relationship.
As Russian President Vladimir Putin begins his visit to India, the top leadership of both the nations engaged into a series of high level discussions underscoring the growth depth of the Indo Russian partnership. India's Defence Minister Rajghat Singh co chaired the 22nd India Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Military and Military Technical Cooperation with his Russian counterpart, Andrei Belosov, in New Delhi on Thursday. Rajnath Singh noted that defense cooperation between the two countries continues to progress at a healthy pace.
रशिया भारत का एक टाइम टेस्टेड स्पेशल प्रिविलेज्ड और स्ट्रेटजिक पार्टनर है और वर्ष 2000 में डिक्लेरेशन ऑफ द इंडिया एंड रशिया स्ट्रेटजिक पार्टनरशिप पर साइन होने के बाद से हमारे बाइलेटरल डिफेंस कोऑपरेशन में काफ़ी बढ़ोतरी भी हुई है। ये अच्छी बात है कि इतनी जियोपॉलिटिकल अनसर्टेनिटी के बावजूद हमारा इंडिया रशिया डिफेंस कोऑपरेशन एक हेल्दी पेस पर चल रहा है और हमारे आर्म्ड फोर्सेज पर्सनल और एक्सपर्ट्स के बीच होने वाले आउटकम ओरिएंटेड एक्सचेंज ने हमारे डिफेंस पार्टनरशिप के मोमेंटम को बनाए रखा है।
Highlighting the strategic nature of the relationship, Belousov underscored India-Russia ties remain a key factor in maintaining balance in South Asia and contributing to global security.
Our bilateral relations have a strategic character, and the partnership with India is a key factor for the balance in South Asian region and the global security in general.
Earlier in the day, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, along with Maxim Oreshkin, Deputy Chief of Staff in the Russian Presidential Executive Office, addressed the India-Russia Business Forum in Delhi. Goyal said India's resilience and economic strength have helped it withstand global challenges.
Despite all the global headwinds, India and our economy has demonstrated tremendous ability to withstand headwinds, shock, challenges. From a fragile 5 economy barely 11 years ago, we are today amongst the top 5 economies, soon to become the world's 3rd largest GDP.
While Oreshkin described India as the world's fastest growing economy.
We see what significant results the Indian economy achieved over the recent years, becoming the most quickly growing economy of the world. The figures speak for themselves. Average annual growth of GDP over the recent 5 years is exceeding 8%.
With strategic dialogues, defense cooperation, and rising trade ambitions setting the tone, India and Russia look poised to elevate their partnership to the next level. As President Putin's visit unfolds, all eyes remain on the outcomes that could shape regional stability and global dynamics in the years ahead. Bureau Report, DD India.
And DD India correspondent Jessica Taneja joins us from the newsroom with more. Jessica, take us through the key priorities for the two leaders as India-Russia Annual Summit, the 23rd edition, takes place today. Also, given the geopolitical context, the priorities would be significantly evolved.
Well, yes, apart from the energy trade that both countries have, they're also looking into diversifying economic ties, looking at various other sectors of cooperation which go beyond sort of traditional sectors of defense and nuclear. And perhaps these are the areas they would look to sort of come together and have a roadmap ahead, which the two countries, if you'd recall, when Prime Minister Modi had visited Moscow for the 22nd annual summit in July last year, the two had signed 9 MOUs and had come out with a joint agreement which said that they want to take the bilateral trade to $100 billion by the year 2030, and they want to complete that target. It's an ambitious target, but the movement in that direction is there. If you speak to analysts as well as the government officials, the ambassador, Indian ambassador to Russia, Vinay Kumar, he had briefed the media and told about the current progress that India and Russia have made on their economic ties because of the large trade deficit that India has with Russia. Out of the total $68.7 billion trade in the last financial year, almost $65 billion was energy trade, and India's exports were roughly $4.9 billion. So that needs to go up. And what are the sectors that both countries would look to opening to each other? For example, the agro trade seems to be going in a direction where it could see more momentum. Last year, the Russian market was selling Indian pomegranate and potatoes. So that is a start, so to say. But yes, the two countries are exploring more sectors where they can, have more collaboration. For example, apart from the energy trade, Russia also exports fertilizers to India, about 3.5 metric tons of it in the last few years, and that is a significant chunk. So certainly the dependence on trade between each other is beyond defense and nuclear cooperation, and the two have recognized that. It is almost a quarter of a century ago, back in the year 2000, when Russian President Vladimir Putin had come to India and met Prime Minister Vajpayee back then. A lot has changed, though some similarities in the global economic and security situation and in the neighborhood, but the ties between the two, a steady relationship in modern times, is what the Indian government believes it is.
Yes, Jessica. Gautam here. We've seen how it has been an area of concern for both the Europeans and the Americans, the kind of boost India and Russia ties have got ever since the Ukraine conflict began, where energy is concerned, oil and gas both, and it's been specifically targeted by the US with that punitive tariff of 25% extra that has been imposed on India. Now, how would these two leaders be looking at this issue itself? Because it is important for India to be getting oil at the rates that Russia has been giving it to, discounted rates. And at the same time, there is that concern on tariffs as well, which have had an impact already if you look at our exports to the US in October.
Well, yes, there has been an impact on the additional tariffs that the US government put on India, 25% additional because of Russian energy imports. And this is likely to come up in the discussions today, although we don't know the exact details or to what extent will this be discussed. But yes, given that India's energy trade with Russia, it is significant and it will be discussed. And India will continue to explore various markets for importing oil and its energy needs, because India imports more than 80% of its energy needs, and it looks at various markets and is constantly diversifying given the kind of sanctions that are at play, and the world order seems to be changing a little or conveniently moving to a transactionalist approach. And given that context, the two leaders would definitely have more discussions on this, and the negotiators who will be accompanying the leaders will be mulling over facts and details of how to navigate this complicated situation that both countries find themselves in. And so far, what we've seen is with the United States and its sanctions, a lot of trade has been affected, and the tariffs certainly would continue till the time we don't have a trade deal with the United States, which is also in the offing as we gather, but no confirmation to that effect. Discussions are ongoing. So given all of the current geoeconomic environment and the complications of the world's trade relations,
right, Jessica,
it will be important how both countries come to a particular conclusion as to how to navigate all of this.
Jessica, stay with us. Ambassador Ajay Malhotra, seldom is a bilateral relationship in focus of the international lens so much, especially the West and the United States. And given that both India and Russia happen to be at a delicate stage of negotiation with the United States, how do you see this visit of President Putin to India in that context?
Well, India-US ties have got strained due to the oil trade with Russia, which is unfortunate because there's no reason for that. This is the same countries who otherwise tell us, the market will prevail everywhere. And when we let the market prevail, they come and start lecturing us. So, but it will be there, in my view, in the background, part of the atmospherics about the summit, certainly not on its formal agenda. We follow a policy of strategic autonomy, of multi-alignment in our foreign relations. And our relations with USA and Russia are not a zero-sum game. We want the best of relations with both countries, and we will act in our national interest to keep India first, as we often say. So our private companies and PSUs may keep in mind their larger commercial interests, which is correct, while buying oil and gas. But I should point out also that, while we have a special and privileged strategic partnership with Russia, and this description we don't assign to any other such relationship, we also have a comprehensive global strategic partnership which was signed with President Trump when he came here in February 2020. And what has been the impact of that? We have the highest tariffs imposed on us by the Americans, which may be withdrawn, and we hope they are. We have sanctions imposed, whereas China is a bigger buyer of oil and gas from Russia. USA itself buys uranium, which is a nuclear fuel, from the Russians, and increased their purchases last year. So not only tariffs and sanctions, but also the difficulties and added costs for our H-1B visa holders, the talk about a G2 with China, when we favor a multipolar world and a multipolar Asia, and the strong tilt towards our troublesome neighbor Pakistan, who have, the Americans have been mollycoddling the Pakistani army setup and keeping them in their lap, as it were. So these are things that our American friends need to think about. I do wish they come to the right conclusions and look at improving our ties, because we need to have the best of ties with USA, just as we do with Russia. So in my view, this is a context in which we should view this visit, and I do hope the Americans are watching carefully and understanding what correctives they need to put in place as they go ahead.
Yeah, well, so far we haven't really heard anything from Donald Trump or the White House, as far as the reception of President Putin was concerned. Perhaps they're waiting for the entire visit to, conclude and then come up with their comments, because the last time when leaders had come together along with President Xi in Tianjin, Trump had commented that the US has lost India and Russia to darkest China, and that seemed like almost rueful. Ajay Malhotra, do you feel that that is a sentiment that will still persist in DC?
Well, since then he described China as G2, for example, which is a matter of concern to us. I mean, we don't want one single dominant power then to be replaced by a pair of them, especially one of them is with whom we have a bit of a problem. So yeah, that is a concern. But as regards the welcome and all, he gave exactly a similar welcome to President Putin when he came to Anchorage. Red carpet rolled out, he went to the airport to receive him. So I think he should just feel happy in a situation where America is trying to restore its ties with Russia, and which is the right thing to do to help stop that war in Ukraine. And if USA and Russia move ahead on that, that would be wonderful in my viewpoint, because that would not only stop the killing and the suffering for the people of Ukraine and Russia who are in those war zones, but it would also be nice for us that our two friends, especially Russia, but also USA, with whom we want the best of ties, are on the same side and shooting in the same direction, as it were. And then I think we need to look at, if these things progress right, look at how we can, further strengthen our partnership with both Russia and India and move it ahead.
Ambassador Malhotra, from your experience of having served in Russia, could you give us an insight into the layers of people-to-people connect between the two nations? Because there appears to be a great interest in formulating a certain migration treaty. There's a possibility of that, where trained, skilled Indians could go work in Russia, and this a win-win partnership could be evolved. But could you give us a sense of how this partnership, the people-to-people connect, has evolved over the years?
Well, let me tell you that, if you travel across Russia, and I've lived there for many years, you travel across Russia, you go to small towns, villages, etc., and you see the warmth with which you're received if you say, I'm from India. In fact, you don't have to say anything. If you're a lady from India wearing a sari or a bidhi, you can see it in the eyes of those who look at you. The ladies, you can see that how charmed they are, how interested they are to see somebody who's different, and yet somebody who they think is like them in their thinking, etc. So yes, there's a lot of tremendous goodwill for India across the country, which goes way beyond government-to-government interaction, etc., which is also at a very high level. But that is very reassuring. And when you look at manpower deployment, yes, I think they would be received well. And when we put in place a structure that looks at salaries, etc., so that they go and benefit from it and save and can send money back home and help Russia in its manpower situation, yes, I think that's great. It's good for both countries. And unlike the situation you might find in other parts of the world, our workers will be treated very well up there. And I wouldn't worry so much about the cold either. I know, for example, in Arkhangels, for example, which is on the Arctic, you have, several hundred Indian students who study there and don't feel the cold at all. All houses, everything are heated. Energy is not a problem up there. So even in a minus 50 or 60 centigrade temperature, you get a very, in fact, quite often you have to shed your clothes because it might be overheated and go around in a pajama and vest simply because you may not be able to control the temperature out there. So tremendous goodwill, I think a huge opportunity, and great for India and Russia. I think both of our countries will benefit from such a deployment.
I asked this with our guest yesterday as well, as to all these possibilities are there in terms of where India and Russia relations can go. But does it at all hinge in any way on how this conflict in Ukraine is resolved? Because of Ukraine, India is facing these punitive tariffs that the Americans have imposed on us, and of course a lot of companies, if they want to go and expand their business exports into Russia, or they want to invest in Russia, or if people want to go work there, would they have to also consider the fact that there is still a conflict on, and this could impact their livelihoods and lives as well in the coming days, be it through additional sanctions or increased hostilities?
Well, Russia is a huge country. It goes across more than 11 time zones. And so it's like if there were a shootout at one edge, they'll hear about it maybe a day later on the other side of Russia. So just to bear in mind, I don't think the war is such a major consideration for anyone planning to go and work there. You can, if you visit Moscow even now, and the number of tourists arriving in Russia from India have grown quite significantly, which is a good thing. If you visit, you wouldn't know that there's this sort of war going on, as it were. But obviously it would be nice if it be sorted out. I think this is going in the right direction, because suddenly this will all be over. Suddenly Russia will no longer be viewed by the West, at least by USA, as a complicated country. I don't know about the Europeans. I think they're barking in the wrong direction. But if the West, if USA and Russia sort out the issues, then all of this would open up. And I see, if you reviewed what happened in Anchorage and the follow-up, where a huge American delegation went, and many of them are keen to take advantage of the openings they see out there. And part of any arrangement might be this, how they can jointly exploit for resources in the Arctic, etc. I think we need to be there with our foot through the door. Or otherwise we will feel bad later on that, we didn't take this into account.
Ambassador, just staying with that point, because Gautam mentioned the Ukraine conflict, many also say, given the advanced stages of negotiation, that this conflict could be in its end game, in the final stages. And what you mentioned about American interest in engaging with Russia, one of the points in the peace pointer negotiation that President Trump has forwarded also talks about realigning Russia with global economy. So from the harshest sanctions to bringing Russia back into the fold. So in that sense, these are exciting possibilities then for both India and Russia in the context of global economy, if it works out in that manner.
I agree with you entirely. Indeed, I am a strong supporter of cooperation between India, Russia and USA. And I think that might again be heading, things might again be heading in that direction. If the Americans reach understandings, for example, even in whether it's oil exploration, tapping the resources, as I said, and with the opening up of the Northern Sea route, huge opportunities out there. It's not merely from Chennai to Vladivostok, but going beyond. You have to think going all the way to Murmansk, across the Arctic Ocean, all of that will open up. And for example, Even on nuclear reactors, we talk of Kudankulam, the big ones, but now we're looking at small modular reactors. These are the ones that the Russians have great experience in using on their icebreakers. So there are opportunities out there because these link up with our interests and requirements. So whether it's on a government-to-government side or whether it's on a private sector side, there are huge opportunities. I think our industry needs to be more entrepreneurial. And especially with banking and insurance coming in from the Russian side and our side, if we can tie all of that up, it is very reassuring to the businessman. At the same time, when I see that India, the international north-south transportation corridor, unfortunately, there you go through Iran also, which has sanctions. So many hesitate to use that, even though you might save a lot of time and cost by sending goods down that pathway. But this one that would go through Vladivostok and onwards, I think gives you huge opportunities. And Indian business should be entrepreneurial enough to take that bit of risk for now, get your structures in place for cooperation, and by then I think things would start sorting themselves out. And suddenly you might have opportunities to kind of benefit from it in a way that is of help to both our countries and to the industries that make those moves.
Yes, certainly, and there are clear indications that Vladimir Putin is looking at the possibility of getting to the end of this conflict very soon, some sort of settlement working out. On that note, thank you for joining us, Ambassador Ajay Malhotra. I believe that this is the time that we had with you, so glad to have had that. Thank you once again.
India and Russia are old friends. They share a 78-year legacy of stable, time-tested partnership. The bond between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Vladimir Putin reflects the depth of this strategic partnership, strengthened further through the annual summit format and the 2+2 dialogue. The regular high-level engagement continues to drive cooperation across political, defense, economic, technological domains. In the next report, Mohammad Absarul Hassan delves into the various aspects of India-Russia ties.
Russia has been a long-standing and time-tested partner for India. Under the strategic partnership, several institutionalized dialogue mechanisms operate at both political and official levels to ensure regular interaction and follow-up on cooperation activities. The bilateral relationship has remained strong and stable over the past 78 years. In December 2021, a new dimension to the bilateral cooperation was added with the first 2+2 dialogue. Meetings of foreign and defense ministers of both countries started taking place alongside the summit level talks between Prime Minister Modi and President of Russia, Vladimir Putin. So far, 22 annual summits have taken place alternatively in India and Russia. The last summit was held on July 8 and 9, 2024 in Moscow, and President Putin is set to visit India for the 23rd summit in New Delhi. Bilateral trade between India and Russia reached a record high of $68.7 billion in FY 2024-25. India's exports to Russia, $4.9 billion. India's imports from Russia, $63.8 billion. Major items of export from India include pharmaceuticals, organic and inorganic chemicals, iron and steel, and marine products. Major items of import from Russia include oil and petroleum products, vegetable oil, particularly sunflower oil, fertilizers, coking coal, precious stones, and metals. The primary mechanism at the government level for enhancing trade and economic cooperation is the India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission for Trade, Economic, Scientific, and Cultural Cooperation. Intensifying the trade and economic relations has been identified as a priority area by both the leaders, who had set the targets of increasing bilateral investment to $50 billion by 2025 and bilateral trade to $100 billion by 2030. India has long-standing and wide-ranging cooperation with Russia in the field of defense. India-Russia military technical cooperation has evolved from a buyer-seller framework to one involving joint research, development and production of advanced defense technologies and systems. RM and Russian Defense Minister co-chaired the India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Military and Military Technical Cooperation. INS Turshil was commissioned into Indian Navy in the presence of RM at the Yantar shipyard in Kaliningrad on 9th of December 2024. On 28 March to 2nd of April 2025, the bilateral naval exercise Indra 2025 between Indian and Russian navies was conducted in two phases. harbour phase at Chennai, and sea phase in Bay of Bengal. Science and technology has played a key role in the bilateral India-Russia partnership, especially in the early days after India's independence. India and Russia work together on basic sciences, material science, mathematics, and cutting-edge areas like India's manned spaceflight program Gaganyaan, nanotechnologies, etc. India's only nuclear power plant established with another country is in Kundankulam in Tamil Nadu, which is established in collaboration with Russia. The bilateral cooperation is guided by the new roadmap for science, technology, and innovation signed during the 21st Annual Summit in New Delhi in December 2021. In 2024, Prime Minister Modi was conferred upon Russia's highest state decoration, the Order of St. Andrew the Apostle, the first called for Prime Minister's outstanding contribution to India-Russia ties. Apart from arms and trade, cultural ties from Russia's love for Indian movies to scholarship programs and tourism have helped the two nations to maintain strong relations despite ups and downs. Around 63,000 people of Indian origin live in Russia. Mohammad Absarul Hassan reports for DT India.
All right, so extensive ties that India and Russia have, and there's more room for expansion there as President Putin begins his official engagements on day 2 of a state visit to India for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit. Ambassador Anil Wadhwa, former senior diplomat, joins us now. He's been India's representative ambassador in Italy, Poland, Oman, as well as Thailand. Good morning to you, Ambassador Wadhwa. What do you make of the prospects of the expansion and even the balancing of trade where these ties are concerned between India and Russia, given the kind of geopolitical environment that we have these days, where there's a very strong gaze on in which direction are these ties being further strengthened?
Definitely, I think it's a very important visit from the perspective of what is happening today in geopolitics. And obviously, the visit will be watched very closely in United States, in the Western capitals in particular, in Europe. And as far as India and Russia are concerned, I think they've come to realize it's very important to diversify the trade and investment relationship. Why this has come about as an urgency now is because over the course of last year, as we all know, the trade deficit has ballooned due to the increasing levels of imports of Russian oil. And now it has come to a stage where we need to balance this trade relationship in particular. Fortunately for us, there have been a number of areas that have been identified. A number of delegations have visited over the past year into Russia. And it is the Indian industry which now needs to take the lead and to have faith in the future of this relationship. The avenues are all there, and we have, starting from the connectivity projects that have been talked about for some time now, new avenues which have opened up because Indian exporters also need to diversify due to the ongoing sanctions or tariffs from the United States due to Russian oil imports. And in particular, pharmaceuticals, textiles, shrimp exporters, seafood exporters, they should all look at the Russian market to export much more to that market. On the Russian side, also, there's been a readiness which has been expressed to look into more increased imports from India. The agriculture minister of Russia has been in Delhi over the past few days, and the bilateral talks which have been held have also indicated that agricultural products from India would be welcomed in Russia. In fact, they're willing to enter into joint ventures in this field. And similarly, from the pharmaceutical side, the past few weeks have seen intensive engagements, which have led to the conclusion that there is a lot of scope for increasing exports of pharmaceutical products into Russia. So all in all, I think it is a promising story for diversification, and how we progress with this is very important. I think timely decisions need to be taken, and businessmen need to have that faith in the Russian market.
Ambassador Anil Wadhwa, Shubhendu here. Just for the benefit of our viewers, I also want to inform that you've served as the head of East Europe Division in Ministry of External Affairs. looked after relations with Russia and East European countries. Sir, how do you also see in the recent years, particularly since the conflict in Ukraine, the changing dynamics of Russia with global geopolitics, and what are the implications for India-Russia ties? We've seen the pressures in the recent years, but going forward, what do you read as the implications?
So I think Russia has indeed been under pressure for the past few years. We all know that. And this pressure is not eased, by the way, it's still continuing. Until there is a solution to the Ukraine conflict, this pressure will continue. In fact, it could go in a direction which is quite inimical to what India desires to see in the future, which is a quick settlement of this issue, because it's not just impacting Russia, it's also impacting its major partners like India and also partners in the global south, in Africa, etc. So it's important that a settlement is reached in this conflict as quickly as possible. Now, as far as Russia's importance in the world is concerned, of course, the United States looks at Russia today in the context of Trump 2.0 as a country with whom rapprochement is possible, a partnership is possible, because in the long term, I think the main competition to the United States will come from China. The technological race, which is on for the last few years, is quite evident. The armaments race, which is on for the last few years, also quite evident. And the spheres of influence, which are diminishing for the United States due to the dominance, the upcoming Chinese dominance in various regions of the world, is also quite evident. So therefore, that rapprochement is going to help as far as the US-Russia relationship is concerned. Europe, on the other hand, is...
Ambassador Padma, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but right now we're getting images of the first engagement of the day on day 2 of the state visit of the Russian president. As you can see in the frame, Prime Minister Modi as well as President Draupadi Murmu. These are the images of the ceremonial welcome that the Russian president is being accorded in the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan, India's president's residence there. You can see the limousine moving in slowly with the Russian president on board.
Those
विमान अंतर सेना सम्मान गार्ड निरीक्षण के लिए हाजिर।
Yeah. You're watching those live visuals of ceremonial welcome for Russian President Vladimir Putin at the forecourts of Rashtrapati Bhavan. A guard of honor was also accorded to the visiting dignitary. President Draupadi Murmu and Prime Minister Narendra Modi received President Putin at the forecourts of Rashtrapati Bhavan.
Yes, and the President will be hosting the Russian counterpart at a banquet as well later on in the day. Once, all the official meetings are done, the restricted level talks, the delegation level talks, the statements with the media, joint statement perhaps, Shubhendu, could be in the offing as well, because a lot of things need to be addressed jointly by the leaders as well. And we've seen there's been a track record of doing that, in the past as well when the two leaders have met. Ambassador Anil Wadhwa is with us. What do you make of this beginning? In fact, I'm being told that we're joined also by our colleagues from different locations. If I could come to you now, Jessica Taneja, we have Vishal Baristo with us as well as Siddharth Bhardwaj. But Jessica, to you, just tell us in terms of beginning of this official engagements that we've seen, where do we go from here? We get straight away into the formal talks now?
That's correct. We're right outside Hyderabad House where the formal talks will take place between the two leaders and the delegations that have accompanied the Russian side. Apart from that, about an hour after that, we will have the press statements from both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Russian President. After that, we would see the Russian President go for a business event as well, which has been jointly organized at the Bharat Mandapam. And later in the evening, there's a banquet being hosted by the President Draupadi Murmu for the Russian President Vladimir Putin. So those are the details of what follows for the Russian President in terms of his itinerary today throughout. But if you talk about the importance of the conversation and the talks that are going to take place between the two leaders and the delegations, now that is going to be significant because they have many issues to discuss, not just in terms of regional cooperation, but also issues of global importance, the kind of geo-economic situations, ones that we've discussed just a short while ago, and also looking at strengthening economic ties. So also to point out, Gautam, we've been told that the Russian president is traveling with a business delegation of over 100 officials. So that pretty much speaks volumes about the importance that has been given to the trade ties and the enhancement of that in the near future, because both countries had promised, at least towards an agreement to have bilateral trade reach about $100 billion in the next 5 years. But given the kind of sanctions and the American president's transactionalist sort of approach right now and sanctions, put on countries, it certainly makes room for other countries to cooperate. And Russia and India have been partners, steady relationship that has been described between the two.
Jessica, stay with us. Vishal, if I can come to you. Defense partnership is an important pillar of traditionally India-Russia ties. India has now also begun diversifying its defense engagements. In this visit of President Putin, what are the ways in which this defense engagement could be taken forward? Because the expectations are quite high.
Well, absolutely. Very good morning to you, Shubhendu. And you pointed it very correctly. But let me also tell you that our defense ties need to be bolstered further, because the defense imports from Russia have come down to 36%, 36% if we compare to 2010-15 era. So we need to pull it up, and India's defense relies heavily on Russia, because Russia has been a very strong partner for many, many decades. We are celebrating 25 years of India-Russia diplomatic relations, and our ties go back to the Soviet era. So the defense minister is also one of the key ministers, along with 7 ministers, including the finance minister of Russia and 100 delegates that are traveling from Russia. So defense is going to be a key era. We have seen how the surface to air defense was the game changer for India during the Operation Sindhu against Pakistan. But there are still a lot of things to do, especially the S-400 was very crucial for India, but we are looking for an advanced variant of S-400 that is surface to air defense. And then India would also be eyeing the S-500, and Russia is also very keen. But at the same time, India would also like to maintain its strategic autonomy. So all these things have to be taken care of. And when we talk about the Indian Air Force, yes, all the 29 squadrons are heavily relying on the Russian-made fighter jets. That includes Sukhoi 30, and Russia is also very keen to sell its Su-57, which is Sukhoi 57. We saw it at the air show in Bangalore. But India is also counting on all its options. But as far as this visit of President Putin is concerned, it is going to be very, very crucial when it comes to defense. Shubhendu?
Yeah, since we're on the subject of defense, Vishal, and you cover defense for the network, just tell us, apart from how traditionally India has bought weapons from Russia, Russia has also partnered India, is partnering India in its journey of developing more self-reliance where its own defense is concerned. But the nature of war itself has evidently changed as the conflict in Ukraine, Russia's own experience there, India's brief experience where Operation Sindoor was concerned. Now, to what extent can India and Russia defense ties evolve to take, defense ties into those domains, especially where drones are concerned, where non-kinetic means of conflict are concerned?
Well, very rightly put it by you, Gautam. Yes, we have learned a lot of lessons during Operation Sindoor, and let me tell you, though not directly, but we were fighting on two fronts. And Chinese-made weapons were used by Pakistan, and China was supporting Pakistan. And when it comes to the new technologies, ever-changing technologies, and problems that India has been facing because of the Russia-Ukraine war, the supply chains have been affected. Then the drones have played a crucial role. We've seen how drones have been a game changer for Ukraine in the Ukraine-Russia war. So definitely India is looking for new avenues as well, but India would also like to maintain the balance because from the importer, now India has become an exporting to 200 countries. Now India is more keen on the transfer of defense technology, which Russia also willing to some extent, and that would be the key area of interest for India, not only buying their weapons like the S-400 or the S-500. We already have S-400, but the advanced variant of S-400 and Sukhoi 57 is there on the radar for Indian Air Force, but at the same time it would also focus on the technology transfer, and it would be interesting to see what the defense minister of Russia has to offer. So it is going to be a very, very important day and very hectic schedule, but both India and Russia would be focusing on not only on the giver and taker, but bilateral further strengthening the relations as far as defense is concerned, because defense is a key area. Gautam?
Right. Vishal, stay with us. Siddharth, let me come to you. We've talked about diplomatic, economic, defense engagements, but what makes India-Russia ties special are the wide gamut of areas where the two countries engage. If you can fill us in about the expectations from the perspective of people-to-people ties between India and Russia in this visit of the President.
Definitely, Shubhendu. First thing which I want to say, answering your first question, that what is that which is binding both the nations together is actually the mutual trust between both the countries that is binding them together, and that is the foundation of the relationship between the two countries, which my colleague also Vishal mentioned, that the relationship between both the countries goes back to the Soviet era. Probably we weren't born that time as well, and since the time the relationship between the two countries is actually flourishing, and this is a very historic visit by President Vladimir Putin. We saw and this is a very significant and historic visit by the president, in various areas. Both the sides are expected to touch various sectors, which includes defense, which is the key pillar, I would say the central pillar of the relationship between two countries, and also the trade. Apart from that, civil nuclear cooperation is one thing, and one thing which is very important here, Shubhendu, is Labour Mobility Pact, which is expected to be signed, which will sign the legal framework for the migration and will give the opportunities to the blue collar workers there in Russia, because we all know that India has one of the largest skilled force in the entire world, and then when these forces will go to the different parts of the world, generate economy and further boost the economy of the country. So in that manner, this is a very significant visit. When you talk about people to people ties, Shubhendu, then this is a sector which usually people don't talk about, but it is very important sector when it comes to the ties between both the countries. There are about 20,000 students that are residing in Russia, and they are doing different works. Some are doing jobs, some are studying, bridging the gap between both the countries. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi also always addressed the diaspora as Rashtradoot. So in this manner, in this context, it's very, very important. We just saw a while back President Vladimir Putin was given a ceremonial welcome. The day 2 started with ceremonial welcome to President Vladimir Putin. He came there at the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. He met Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also met Honorable President of India, Draupadi Murmu. And India certainly believes in Atiti Devo Bhava, which means that we treat our guests like God. And apart from that, India also believes, Shubhendu, in the spirit of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which means that the world is one family and one future as well. So that way, the day 2 has started on a very high note, and there are some other engagements throughout the day. Like my colleague Jessica has told, both the leaders will go to Hyderabad House. Therein, there are different MOUs that are expected to sign, the details of which are not yet out. But there are some key areas which are expected to be taken up when both the leaders will meet. Apart from that, it will be followed by a joint statement and followed by some other engagements throughout the day, including the business forum. So in that manner, this is a very historic visit by President Vladimir Putin. Civil nuclear cooperation, I would say, Shubhendu, is a very important and critical area wherein both the sides are expected to announce something, which again, we have no details about. So all in all, when you sum up this visit, when you talk about this visit, in fact, by President Vladimir Putin, is a very important and very significant and a historic visit, because he is coming here in India after 2021 for the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit, when both the leaders will meet. There are certain things, important and critical things, which will likely to come out. Especially when you talk about the critical minerals and rare earths, which is a necessity in today's world. Russia has it. Probably when it comes to those rare earths and critical minerals, something is expected to come. Apart from that, when you talk about the energy security, then India, as we all know, is diversifying its sources, energy sources in the global world, and Russia being an important partner, something we can hear when you talk about the energy sources, because diversifying energy sources is actually the need of the hour, and India is heavily working on that, in which, like I just mentioned, Russia is a very important partner. So a lot of things are expected to come up with this historic visit by President Vladimir Putin, who is here in India. We also saw in a warm gesture how Prime Minister Narendra Modi, setting aside the protocol, himself went and received the Russian president, and the picture.
Right.
Those
well, we're getting
visuals,
more images now from, I believe that's Rashtrapati Bhavan itself.
That's Rajghat now.
Rajghat,
President Putin of Russia now at Rajghat to pay his respects to Father of the Nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Those visuals coming in live from New Delhi, from Rajghat.
सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। सीताराम सीताराम भज प्यारे तू सीताराम। सीताराम सीताराम भज प्यारे तू सीताराम। ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। ईश्वर अल्लाह तेरे नाम सबको सन्मति दे भगवान। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम।
वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। पर दुखे उपकार करे तोए मन अभिमान नाणे रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। सकळ लोक सहुने वंदे निंदा न करे केनी रे। वाच काछ मन निश्चल राखे धन धन जननी तेनी रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। समदृष्टि ने तृष्णा त्यागी परस्त्री जेने मात रे। जिह्वा थकी असत्य न बोले पर धन नव झाले हाथ रे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़ पराई जाने रे। मोह माया व्यापे नहीं जेने दृढ़ वैराग्य जिना मन मारे। राम नाम शू ताळी लागे सकळ तीरथ तेरा तन मारे। वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए जे पीड़
राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम 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 भज प्यारे तू सीताराम 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 भज प्यारे तू सीताराम ईश्वर.
So that was the Russian president paying homage to the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhi, at his memorial at Rajghat in the national capital. So two of his engagements, formal engagements, ceremonial engagements rather, done for the day today on the second day of his state visit. One, the ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and now the paying of homage at Rajghat, Shubhendu, and now we get down to business perhaps from here.
Absolutely. A host of issues in focus, and Ambassador Anil Wadhwa continues to be with us. Ambassador Wadhwa, as perhaps time is here for the more formal talks to begin, could you give us some insight about this format of the annual summit, India-Russia annual summit? This is the 23rd edition. How has it steered the ties through turbulent and other times between the two nations?
So the annual summits were set up precisely because the relationship was so intense, and it was intended to take stock of the various intergovernmental bodies that have been set up between India and Russia at least once in a year, and it was felt necessary to do that. Now, we have a special privileged partnership with Russia, and therefore it's important that the two leaders also come face to face at least once a year. This has not happened since 2021 because of the extraordinary circumstances that we've had since the Ukraine war, etc.
Yes, it happened last year though. The Prime Minister had gone there in July.
Yeah, we had it last year, yes. But you know, now of course we wanted to continue that tradition which was set in the earlier years. It's important because just before these kinds of summits, we always have meetings of the Intergovernmental Commission, especially taking stock of the economic relationship, and also the meeting between the defense ministers, which has also happened this time. In fact, this time we've also had the visits of the health ministers and the agriculture ministers from the Russian side. And plus, a number of delegations have visited each other in the run-up to this summit. So all those decisions will be on the table. They will go into the joint statement that will come out as a result of this summit. Plus, I believe there are as many as 10 intergovernmental agreements which have been readied, another 15 or so agreements or MOUs in the commercial side, in the economic side, which will also be signed. So we have a full agenda, and I think the restricted level talks will focus more on issues that will not be figuring so much in the open documents like the joint communique, but on the other hand, taking stock of geopolitics, international developments, etc. But this is going to be a comprehensive joint communique as far as I can see.
Okay, let me bring in Jessica Taneja. She's right at the venue where the official talks will commence. Jessica, we're hearing a lot about a slew of agreements, MOUs, a long list of outcomes really, and we've had inklings of what may be in store in terms of the kind of delegation that the Russian president has brought over this time around. Already we've had engagements taking place where our defense minister and commerce minister are concerned. What can you tell us about this particular aspect in terms of, because we do measure visits in terms of their outcome as well?
Well, there will be MOU signed in a short while from now as both leaders arrived here at Hyderabad House for delegation level talks, and then will address the media, and there'll be statements. Certainly, we will get to know as to what more is in the offing in terms of what the two leaders decide and what path do they take forward when it comes to strengthening of economic ties. But yes, as you said, there is a huge business delegation that is accompanying the Russian president to India. And we're told about 100 of those business officials are here to engage with their Indian counterparts on how to increase investment in Indian market, look at the strategic sectors where there can be more cooperation, which is again beyond just defense and nuclear. Look at India's pharmaceutical sector. We are beginning to now open up on that front, and also the agro trade, something which is important and new and emerging discussion between the two leaders. So, and also textiles, Gautam, certainly, this particular sector is exploring. The business officials from both sides and the industry officials want to see and examine how this particular sector can be taken up and what more can be done on both sides.
Right.
But we will know in some time when the two leaders finish their delegation level talks and are able to tell us exactly on what other aspects of their bilateral relations, apart from what we've already discussed, will they sort of deliver on?
Right. Jessica, stay with us. Vishal, I'll come to you. We know that partnership in emerging technologies is seen as like the new frontier in global geopolitics. In this domain, what are the expectations as far as India-Russia ties are concerned?
Yes, I'd like to add rare earths to that as well.
Yes, yes.
Vishal.
Well, absolutely. Before I answer to your question, let me just inform our viewers that on India's side, India would like to position Indian goods in the Russian market once the war is over. But we cannot certainly ignore the defense and the economy. And when we are talking about defense, the purchase of Chinese fighter aircraft J-35 have not gone not unignored by India, and definitely
Right,
we are
Vishal.
looking for some kind of strengthening from the Russian side. So there have been delays as far as some units of S-400 are concerned, and that have been postponed to 2026. So India would definitely would like to have a timeline on the delivery. Now coming back to the question of Gautam, rare earth is one such area where India and Russia would like to collaborate more and more. We have seen how China has skyrocketed in this particular area, and we also have some deposits, but both countries can definitely benefit of out of each other. And when we are talking about the rare earths minerals, it is very much important and very much required as far as microchips production is concerned, and also in other areas. So definitely India would like to move beyond the defense and oil sector, and these are the areas which India would like to focus more upon. As far as Russia is concerned, Russia is eyeing India as a skilled labor because 140 billion population, and Russia's supply chain has also been affected because of the sanctions from the West, and because of the ongoing war with Ukraine. So the HR is going to be a key area where there could be an MOU between the two countries,
Right,
apart
Vishal.
from defense, oil, and other sectors.
Right, Vishal, host of issues in focus as more formal talks begin now between India and Russia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Vladimir Putin are going to hold talks. But that's all the time we had in this special presentation. Let me thank my correspondents Vishal Baristo and Jessica Taneja. Many thanks also to Ambassador Anil Vadva for joining us in this special program.
Yes, thank you for being with us through the special broadcast, which will, of course, extend with my colleague Mark Lynn next and now. And that's all for the moment from me and Shubhendu. But do keep watching TD India for all the latest on this visit and much else.
Namaskar.
Oh.